Yeah.
Twins pod.
What gave you the idea to start Blackwater?
So
The biggest military contracting company in the world.
SEAL teams, special operations kind of units, have been using private facilities in America since the 1970s because, we have a gun culture. So there'd be great professional shooters that would start a school, almost like a dojo.
Mm-hmm.
And so SOF units would go to those and learn. And while I was in the teams from 92 through 96, visited some of those. And I thought that was a great idea. But no one had done it on an industrial scale, like a big one that could handle a lot of units, and especially one that was close to the East Coast teams. So between getting out of the Navy, because I'd planned to stay in the Navy for 10, 12 years, which are kind of the good years to be a SEAL officer,
Right.
before you get stuck at a desk. It was family policy that you don't come and work in the family business because you got to go do your own thing, make your own, cut your own trail.
Make your own way.
Makes sense now because if my dad got money, I'm not joining the military. I'm staying home trying to grift off my dad. I mean, that's what most people would do.
But that was never even an option. I had no interest in the business at all. I mean, when I was in high school, some years I would work in they called it the beautification department at the business, which cut a lot of grass.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was funny getting dropped off because we lived on one side of town and the business was on the other side of town. And so I'd get a ride with my dad and I'd make him drop me off a block away because I didn't want to be getting out of his Cadillac going to work in the grass department. But it just makes it harder to
You
relate
got your
to the
own
guys
set
you
of
work with.
problems, huh?
Yes. That's a rich guy problem. I'm
Right.
sorry. I'll acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But you know what? But showing up with everybody knows what my last name was, and I don't want to dishonor my dad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it was my plan to stay in these teams for a while and then do something with him afterwards. But that was cut short because he died of a heart attack and plans changed.
Yeah.
So, and so having, in the 90s, there was the peace dividend and there was bases being closed, major bases once a month and a lot of ranges. So there's a huge de-emphasis on all that. But
Why was that so? Because when I was in Marine Corps, I remember I didn't know the details behind it, but when I was in Marine Corps, a lot of bases was shutting down.
sure, because there was a lot more during the Cold War, and then in the 90s, they rightly made a big rationalization because we just don't need a lot. I mean, there's 400 U.S. bases around the world.
Oh, okay.
A lot of room for rationalization there too. But yeah, it was. Were you East or West Coast? Boot
West
camp?
Coast.
Okay.
Well, East Coast. I went to Paris
Paris
Island,
Island? Right on.
but I was stationed in MCS testing. Then that base closed and went to El Toro.
Okay. So you're in the aviation side?
I was a truck driver.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a truck driver on the air wing.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very chill.
But necessary when you got to move supplies.
Yeah. I wanted to go to Okinawa, get some of that long time action, but remember the dream sheet? You had to fill out where you wanted to go? It was all BS.
Yeah. I put Okinawa. We went to go to Japan.
Yeah, because
You were both in the Corps.
Yeah, we were both in. And we saw that movie, Full Metal Jacket. So we went to go get some long time action. They stuck us in California, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was stuck with the Mexican girls.
Yeah.
I want the Asian girls.
This is probably going to be the most unprofessional podcast you've ever been on.
It's
But.
okay, man. I'm well rested. I'm in the mood.
Hey, so you initially started on Blackwater. Your vision was to just train Navy SEALs, right?
When there was when we officially opened the facility, there was like a sketch done of what the place should look like in 10 years. And it included big runway and a track and a big fighting city called the Mout. You know what the Mout area is. And so that's kind of what we wanted to get to. But I had seen the absolute debacle of nonsense of the UN peacekeeping in Bosnia. And so I thought there was certainly room to do better in contracted peacekeeping forces because, when the UN hires peacekeepers, they're hiring countries that largely have fairly unprofessional militaries, not very well trained, not well paid or supplied, and they don't do a very good job. And so doing that better and stopping people from being slaughtered, like in Rwanda, for example,
Right.
and 1 million people killed by farm tools in 4 months. Come on, it was
It's a mess.
so.
You
Yeah,
know, that's
so,
very-
so starting with a training area, but then at the same time, my dad started when he started first in 1965. He started making die-cast machines, which is a big machine which squeezes a mold together, and it makes an aluminum transmission casing or your gas grill. Right?
Okay.
A nice gas grill. That's a die casting, or the treads of an escalator. That's a big aluminum die casting, for example.
Oh, okay.
So he made the machines that made those parts. That business we did not sell, and I took that over. And that one was kind of it was a sleepy business. It had 250 employees, and so as I'm taking that through kind of a lean transformation, making it buying stuff smarter and taking labor cost out and just making the whole thing more efficient,
Right.
I start to think, what does a military do? It recruits, vets, equips, trains, deploys, and supports people to do a difficult job. Why don't we do the same thing? And so we had the training thing pretty well wired.
Right.
And then when especially after 9/11 happened, that was really the catalyst because we got pulled into doing security work overseas. And so we had to recruit and verify and process and supply the people to do that. And so we really built the infrastructure to do all of that all in one base. So Blackwater was not just a training facility. It was effectively a recruiting, training, deployment base, even with eventually with its own airfield.
Oh, okay. So you were not only training like Navy SEALs, you was training active military at the time.
Yeah, the Navy, the U.S. Navy came to us after the coal was blown up in October of 2000. Remember that was in Yemen? Navy ship getting gas. And a suicide boat drove into the side, killed, I think, 17 sailors.
Right.
And the sailors were holding unloaded guns that they hardly ever fired before. And it was so bad then the Navy was using lasers in boot camp, not real guns.
Really?
Because guns were too dangerous. Yeah. Again, the
Talking about setting somebody up to fail.
bureaucracy, when left to itself, can really fuck shit up. Right?
Yeah.
That's a woke ass army too.
Yes.
They shoot lasers.
Lasers. Okay. So they came. Literally, senior people from the Navy came down and said,
Came to you to train
"Came to
them.
Blackwater." Yep.
Wow.
Because I think they asked the SEAL teams, well, where do you guys train? Well, we go to Blackwater. Okay, so down comes a couple of captains and a couple of master chiefs, and then we bid for a program, and we ended up training about 100,000 sailors nationwide at our facility and 3 or 4 other satellite facilities we set up next to every Navy base, and we trained them how to do basic firearms, shipboard security, visit board search and seizure, all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense because when the military can't really train the military. I mean, was in the Marine Corps, and once a year we go to Camp Pendleton and play like real Marines. We go up in Camp Pendleton, we up in the mountains, and they put these Alice packs on, and it was like lasers.
Miles
Yeah.
gear.
Miles gear, that's what it was called. So when you get shot, it would go off. Beep, 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 beep. Right? So I mean, one time I was in the back of a 5-ton, and we just driving down the road playing Marines. We were fake Marines, but anyway.
He was a cook.
What year were you in?
94, 98.
Okay.
And we're on this 5-ton, and we're just driving down the road.
You told me this story.
Right, and a bunch of Marines in the back of this 5-ton, right? So we're just playing like we're out in a war zone. And then we start taking fire from the left side. So the truck slams on its brakes. We got all like M16s pointed up to the sky, right? So when he slams on the brakes, everybody's guns is doing this. People pulling the trigger. So a bunch of us is like beeping before we even get off the truck. We shot each other.
Yep. Okay.
So the ones that made it off, we're shooting each other in the back. And I remember I think it was a gunnery sergeant. He's like, "Yo, sons of bitches, the most worthless fucks I ever seen in my life." And but it's like we didn't train for that.
Yeah.
We
Right.
we did that in boot camp, but after that we went to Marine combat training, which was another 8 weeks, but still not enough training. I mean, we're not like the grunts.
Yeah.
But we went to MOS school, and I was in a mess hall for like a year.
Yeah.
Well, again, 20 years of that kind of stuff. Certainly, from 2001 until the debacle of Afghanistan, certainly improved that in the Marine Corps
Right.
and across the Army. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a very rude awakening about individual soldier skills matter.
Yeah.
And so, and that the Navy got the wake up call in October of 2000
On the boat to Yemen.
in Yemen, and after major combat operations supposedly were stopped in Iraq or Afghanistan, well, you still had the enemy that gets a vote, and so they bring an insurgency, and now they're bringing the fight that they want, not the one that the U.S. military wants,
Wow.
because the enemy always gets a vote.
Yeah.
Right.
So you guys were both truck drivers?
No,
No,
I was a cook.
You were a
Well, I
cook.
wasn't really a cook. I worked in the mess hall with the cooks.
Okay.
They would tell me to go get the food. I'd bring it back and they'd cook the shit. But I was a Marine.
What was it called? What's the title? Subsistence clerk?
Subsistence clerk, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was a Marine, though.
Every Marine a rifleman.
Right.
Yeah, I was a sharpshooter. Almost
I was
made
expert with a rifle.
That's good.
Yeah, I just missed it.
But I remember my shooting instructor said, "Yeah, you're an expert on the range, but remember, you're shooting a target is not moving."
And not shooting back at you.
Right. But I thought I was doing something,
As Blackwater started, in fact, one of the things that really saved the business early on was making target systems, because we had very destructive customers, right? We had
Okay.
special operations units. I mean, at that point, when I was in the Navy, the SEAL team's ammunition budget for training exceeded the entire Marine Corps' training budget for ammunition, to give you a relative comparison.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
yeah. So we had customers that shot the shit out of everything. And so we ended up buying outside stuff that got destroyed. And in a brilliant guy named Jim D. Hart, who used to manage SEAL Team 6's facility, came on and helped us build both the shoot houses and all the ranges, and he made some really beefy steel targets. And the great irony, one of the things that really saved the business was in about 98, right? Because we're bumping along, not making any money, having to send extra money to make payroll.
Oh, that sucks.
That sucks.
Yeah.
September 30 at 11:55 p.m., right? Literally the last 5 minutes of the fiscal year, the fax machine turns on.
Fax machine.
Fax machine. No email.
Right.
And in comes an order from the FBI.
The FBI.
The FBI.
FBI.
And they ordered 11 different field offices, a full set of our target systems, and that made the year for us.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
Great irony.
I always thought the government took care of the government. They was going to a private contractor like you.
Well, in that case, they were not buying range time from us. They were buying. They asked us to make their targets, which we installed on those ranges, and they're probably still running. There's a bunch of them that were even installed at Delta's facility in North Carolina, still running.
Wow.
I'm damn proud of that, because that is a high volume usage, and it still works.
Yeah. So you didn't envision that necessarily that was going to be your cash cow that was going to save your business?
No, at that point it was about 50% of the business, training, targets.
Okay.
And I guess it's a good lesson that if you find the right people and you give them, you don't have to tell them exactly what to do, but tell them where you want to get to, they'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
And
Where to make the business works. You also expanded your business in the providing security.
yes, so we had no real plans to be in the security business overseas, but after 9/11, when certain government entities had to go overseas and they're used to one level of security, not an active war zone, then we got hired. First job was in Kabul, actually protecting the CIA station there. And then I got pulled into other outlying small bases. And then when Iraq happened, we did similar work there. And then we got pulled into doing State Department security and protecting effectively the guy who was the ambassador. We protected Jerry Bremer, and then later who became whoever was U.S. ambassador. We ended up protecting pretty much all the diplomats in Iraq and Afghanistan for many years.
Yeah, private security is huge business.
That took over your business, right? Like financially,
It was that would probably our single biggest customer.
Okay.
Sure, because, and with that, the only like business acquisition we did was a aviation business in 2003. Because I really don't like I don't like to buy businesses. I would rather find the right people and kind of build it organically.
Right.
But we bought a little company called Presidential Airways, which was basically 6 guys, a leased airplane, and the right licenses, because they had all the FAA licenses, the maintenance license, and they were CARB certified, which means they could fly troops. And so we ended up providing overseas airlift support in the war zone for U.S. Transportation Command, part of the Air Force.
Wow, what was people doing before there was Blackwater? If you needed these services done.
Well, remember you said that there was more bases and more stuff in the 90s, but they started closing those bases.
Oh, okay.
And so you used to have a much larger headcount in the military. And going forward, they found it cheaper ultimately to outsource a lot of that stuff. If you don't have to carry all the subsistence clerks or some of these, right. So there's some things you can do yourself that you want to have. The military has to have itself, and there's other things that they can surge and they can rent more capability when necessary. That's been the math. The problem, and why. I mean, we at Blackwater, as a private organization, we had to be extremely efficient because our stuff was not cost plus, meaning, and that's a real legitimate complaint about military overspending that people have.
Right.
Is a lot of the big vendors prefer to have cost plus. Right. So imagine building a house, and if the contractor said, "Well, I'm not sure how much it's going to cost." But I'll tell you about it at the end, and then I'm going to add my fee to it.
Right.
That's effectively what cost plus is, versus the way we wanted to contract, which was firm fixed price.
Okay.
Where we tell you, just like you would buy your house, to say, I'm going to buy this house. It's going to have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and this many windows, and it's going to cost $250,000. Then if it was $255,000, I was eating that extra $5,000.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Look, everybody, inflation is out of control, and this problem's only gonna get worse.
Can't have all your eggs in one basket, especially when you got people like Sleepy Joe holding the basket in the White House.
That's why me and Kevin are always diversifying our assets. That's the kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion we like.
Yeah. The value of silver, gold has been steadily rising, while the value of the American dollar has been falling. Because what?
Inflation.
Because our government
Sucks. Now, y'all, purplebar.com is changing the game, making it easy for all of us to protect our financial futures.
Look how cool these gold and silver bars are. Patriotic engraving on there too.
Look real nice. The bars are perforated so they can easily break apart and can be conveniently exchanged if the dollar collapses. Go to purplebar.com and use promo code Hodgetwins and you get 5% off gold bars. And you get 10% off silver bars. Yeah.